Let's talk about The Flash.
I think we should put up full spoilers because you can't not talk about the spoilers in this film. They're too good to talk about.
Okay, so the full disclosure, apart from spoilers from here on out, is I literally walked home from this movie, sat down and started recording the show. So I am still digesting this movie actively in my brain. And there's a fucking lot to digest about this movie.
I finished it an hour before.
Gentlemen. It is... To me, the kind of the opening salvo I want to put in is that to me it is two entirely different movies hewn together by some of the most spectacularly hilarious CG I've ever seen.
Yep.
And neither of those two movies were bad.
I kind of like this movie.
Yeah, I landed.
Of course, Garrett. Of course.
But I landed on 3.
I went for 3 as well because there's ways in which it is bad, but the ways in which it is bad are usually extremely funny. So thumbs up. Good job, The Flash.
Yeah.
Okay, so like 3 out of 5, 6 out of 10.
5 stars is what you're about to say. I was like, holy shit.
No, I can deal with that as a and I think it's guys, honestly, and it was the thing that was kind of leveled a little bit at Spider-Man, and I didn't really care because I don't think I was particularly self-reflexive enough to want to acknowledge it, why it worked for me. But imagine watching this movie, right? Someone's taking you out on a date or something, and you're kind of near the start of a relationship, and you know nothing about superhero movies.
Why would you take them to The Flash?
No. Yeah, but like, you don't know, do you? You don't know. Like, for me, the basic level of what a movie should deliver is that there should be like a clear plot. You should be able to understand why things are significant to a degree, and when you come out of it, you should sort of understand what took place. And I can't say that this movie passes any of those tests at all, or even comes close to it at any point.
I think there's a pretty straightforward story at the center, which is like overcoming grief and loss and accepting it rather than trying to change and fix it.
And they fucking make a meal of it.
That's the reason I'm like, I think it's pretty straightforward, because they fucking bash you over the head with it.
Yeah. There's one point where it's like the entire plot of the movie is summed up in one sentence, where Barry says 3 lives ruined over a can of tomatoes.
And they even, like, at the end of the movie, when they do the big moment where he lets his mom go, essentially, they even, like, replay the thing she said at the start about how sometimes there is no solution. It's, like,
awful.
Bashing you on the head.
They redid that, like, 3 or 4 times during the movie, that same quote, because, like, she says it to young Barry, and then Barry says it to other Barry.
By the way, when she says it to young Barry, there should be literal alarm bells over her head. It's like, this is the moral of this story. Like, at the start of the movie, you're like, all right, that's the thesis of the movie, and then to say it like 3 more times.
Yeah, but do you feel like any of those emotional beats are particularly earned in this movie? Because I really didn't.
I don't know.
That's why the story doesn't work for me at all, because I'm just chucked in. And by the way, I'm not... Before we even get deep into the movie, Ezra Miller was terrible in this film.
But he's meant to be.
Yeah. Like, that's like, Barry is a fucking annoying prick.
I think that is my favorite thing about this movie, though.
I've never cared for The Flash because, like, I know it's the bit that Barry Allen is an annoying character.
But there's being annoying. Like, it's the difference between Heat and Change the Channel Heat for me. Like, Ezra Miller is Change the Channel Heat in this movie. Awful, really bad performance.
The reason I liked it is that he is unbearable and the worst, but also the older version of him is realizing just how unbearable and the worst he is.
Yeah, that's the kind of bit that I like, is that, like, geez, like, it's almost like the audience surrogate of, like, older Barry being like, Jesus fucking Christ, is this what I sound like?
Yeah, it's because usually this is what all superhero characters sound like. They're all like this all the time. Yeah. And for once, a movie is like, that is so fucking bad. Why are we like this? And it is a little bit like pointing at the bad thing and saying it's bad, but at least it's someone is suffering, and that makes me feel good. A character in this movie is suffering because of how annoying the lead character is, and I can at least live vicariously through that.
That doesn't sound like it should be a thing, though. Can we just have characters that like actually, I can buy into? And to me, I get the gimmick. I understand what they're trying to do with an obnoxious character, but there are plenty of examples of obnoxious characters in movies that are portrayed in a sort of even-handed fashion that make sense, that fit in with it, and you almost sort of accept them. I did not like the tone of this performance. It felt weird. Lots of the line deliveries just didn't sit right with me. In fact, I found that when Ezra was being more obnoxious, I kind of preferred it than when Ezra was trying to be like po-faced about things, or, like doing the super serious moments. I just didn't buy into any of it. And what the fuck, man? Is General Zod the villain of this movie, or is Barry Allen the villain of his own piece, and he should have listened to Bruce?
Barry Allen is,
yes. Yeah, well, that's
Zod is just like background dressing for the Barry Allen story.
You take one of the great villains of the sort of DC universe, and they're just there, and there's no real purpose or build up, and they're just there as a lingering threat on a television screen, and then they turn up in the desert for 20 minutes for a genuinely terrible, like, not even, we'll get to some of the really bad CGI, but that whole thing didn't look great either.
I will say one thing, though, about that particular fight scene in the desert, and you know what I'm about to say, Jack, is that at one point they use the raconteurs during that. Therefore, it is a 5-star movie.
It's a great movie.
No.
Thumbs up.
Salute Your Solution is a great song.
It is a great song, and you should be disappointed that it was used in such a There's
one person at Warner Brothers that is in the music department, because this is, I think, maybe the third Snyderverse movie that has a Jack White related needle drop.
Yep. It is, yeah.
Hardest Button to Button was in Justice League. Oh no, sorry, Icky Thump was in Justice League. And then there was definitely another one, maybe Hardest Button to Button. So yeah, 5 stars, obviously.
Great movie.
Yeah.
But like, Zod goes over, you should be happy, Jack. Not only is he goes over, he wins.
But do you know what it feels like to me? It feels
Zod
like
goes over, like I'm rooting for Zod.
Yeah, you clearly a big Zod. You hate Edward Miller and you like Zod. You should be happy that he won.
But do you know what? Do you know what is an undisputed fact of cinema? Is that if Michael Shannon is in your movie, it's better than if Michael Shannon isn't in your movie.
It's true.
And I will die on that hill.
Listen, the first scene in this movie is a scene where a building collapses and a bunch of babies fall out the window.
Oh my god!
No, I
started cackling.
Yeah,
that bit was genius.
It's just like, imagine, right? That, like, because we haven't overtly talked about the real life crime spree that Ezra Miller was on a couple of years ago during production of this, and they're seemingly in a better place now and getting help, etc., etc. But it's something that's hung like a pall over this movie. And you would think that with the legitimate crimes and hostage situations and things like that, somebody at some point in a meeting might have said, maybe in the first scene we shouldn't imply that Ezra Miller is microwaving a baby.
That scene is so good.
At first I was like, I was making mental note. I was like, I'm going to make that gag on the show. And then at the end of the scene, when all the babies are saved, the microwave dings, implying it was on.
He was cooking that baby. But like, there's the first scene where like they're locked in the maternity ward, and like they turn around and you see a bunch of babies. It's like there's a bunch of babies in the hospital. Yeah. But then there's the next one where the building tilts over and literally like 10 babies fall out a window. And I'm just like, this is perfect. I don't want movies to be anything else other than this stupid.
So what? I counted maybe 4 or 5 times that I like audibly chuckled at the cinema, and one of them was there was a good deadpan line delivery in that, where it's like it just felt like something out of an episode of Freakazoid, where it's like Freakazoid and Cosgrove going back and forth, where it's Alfred and the Flash talking about what's happening, and Alfred is like, the East Wing is going to collapse, and he's like, it's not, I'm looking at it right now, it's not going to collapse, and then there's a big boom and just deadpan is like, yeah, that's the East Wing collapsing. That did get me a little chuckle.
I just like how the thing I loved about that scene was just how much jeopardy, despite the fact the babies were already in extreme jeopardy as they were hurtling from the 12th floor down to the ground. Every single baby had its own individual issue. Yeah. Like, one baby was near an oxygen canister that was about to explode. Another baby had like a piece of glass coming at it like a knife. There was even like an emotional support dog, and it was just every possible scenario you could have for all of these creatures that are falling out of the window.
So this is like, and that scene encapsulates the thought I came away with from the movie, and maybe why I enjoyed it, is that it has the same
peak of the movie,
but it has the same It's basically the same as how I felt after the first Venom movie, in as much as where I was like, if that came out in 2002, that's my favorite superhero movie of all time, because it's the subtlety hammer. Like, again, one of the gags I really enjoyed, and almost embarrassingly, is when he goes to take off for the first time as the Flash, and the credits, the title card starts to come up, and him and the title card both get interrupted by a teenager going, it's the Flash.
Yeah, but all you're doing is saying the first 10 or 15 minutes of this movie that were good. You're talking about those are the only good bits, really.
Nah, you see that earned my goodwill for the movie, though. And Michael Keaton's in this movie, and he's awesome. It's just
Michael Keaton's
rocks.
Good. But again, everything that's good about it is an actor from a previous movie that you know as a character that you liked. Those are the things that you focus in on. Yeah, but they're
in this movie. That's the movie.
And in one case, because it's Flashpoint Paradox is what they're doing here, and that's the whole thing. That's the whole point of Flashpoint Paradox, is you're doing this kind of and I think as well, if you detach this from a time where every movie is the multiverse movie, you probably give it a bit more, but there is that fatigue, isn't there? But every movie does this now.
Yeah, because it did it worse than all of the other films that I've seen multiverse stuff done so far.
But the big thing about Doctor Strange was who's going to be in this one? They're going to get the wildest cameos. And spoiler of all spoilers, Nick Cage's Superman and George Clooney's Bruce Wayne are in this movie.
My single sentence review of this movie on Letterboxd was it's the single greatest payoff to the Kevin Smith anecdote of all time, because all of a sudden, giant fucking spider shows up
in the Fortress of Solitude, as was described
in the Kevin Smith anecdote about writing a Superman script with John Peters to star Nick Cage, and there's the lasers, and you see this shadowy Superman, and you're like, yep. And then it cuts on CG Nicolas Cage as Superman, and I
popped to the moon.
I was gone.
Piss myself. It is hilarious, because
I thought they did it in a I don't want to say a clever way, but a fun way, that they were doing a chronological thing of there was this bit where the time was moving rapidly, and these different parallel timelines were all colliding with one another, both metaphorically and literally. And you were seeing people who had played the Flash over the years in the old Flash costumes and things like that.
Get fucked CW-verse, by the way.
Yeah.
They're that's not real.
Yeah, absolutely burned again. But then there's they do the same with Superman, and you see black and white Superman, you see Christopher Reeve, and then in your head you're making, well, they're not going to do Dean Cain. No, I don't know if
he's gone now.
Yeah, I don't know if you've been following Dean Cain the last 10 years. They weren't showing Dean Cain in this. It's okay, so the next one is Brandon Routh, and that's where your brain is going, and then giant fucking spider.
Yep.
And I was
a bit gutted for Brandon Routh, though. Yeah. I was a bit gutted for him, because they could have got him.
Maybe they were going to get him, but then they found out he's actually been in the Arrowverse.
Yeah, it's you're a part of CW. Get fucked. Your CW-verse does not count.
Actually, yes, they can, because Brandon Routh was in The Flash in the CW.
Yeah, he was in Legends of Tomorrow and crossed over,
Yeah, it would be massively confusing, because he's two characters.
Both of his characters should have popped up.
Yeah.
And also, the end of this movie, you know exactly what is going to happen. You're George fucking Clooney is getting out of that car, and then George fucking Clooney gets out of that car, and I fist pump the air.
Is pretty damn good.
And I do think that was the whole thing about Doctor Strange, is it's going to have that level of deep cut, and it kind of didn't. It had Patrick Stewart, which was nice, and John Krasinski.
I mean, the Krasinski payoff was great,
but that's paying off dopey Twitter shit.
I don't think that would have been a great payoff had it not been for Wanda fucking wasting all of it.
Yeah, that was a good bit, but George,
that was the bit that made it good. If it was just, hey, here they are, I would have hated it probably.
Yeah. George Clooney's Batman and Nick Cage's Superman being in this movie, there's a lot of movies that go, this is a movie for the fans. When Dwayne made his shitty ass self-indulgent Black Adam movie, all he could talk about was this is for the fans. No, it's fucking not. It's your dopey vehicle for yourself.
Can't do a single segment without digging out.
This is DCEU. It's related. But like this, I think this is a movie. Like, there's no reason you put George Clooney in this movie other than to just pop some people. Same with like Nick Cage's Superman. It's just like, this movie is basically dead. It's been cancelled to death because Ezra Miller's a piece of shit. So we might as well just do some fun shit.
Yeah.
Is that good
yes,
though?
I had a good time.
So this is the thing. I think it's a hoot.
Yeah, like if they made a serious movie, I would not have had as good a time at this movie.
And if they'd gone like all slapstick, it also wouldn't have been. Like, I think it rides a line. Like I said, it's like two completely different movies, and in some ways, it kind of works for me. And like, it's just like there's just some extremely silly moments in it that are like, this shouldn't work, but I laughed. Like I said before, another one was like when it's just such a dumb little moment where they phase through a glass door and then the motion sensor just opens the door behind them after doing it. It's just like a good dumb bit.
And literally every time Michael Keaton does anything, they play the Danny Elfman Batman theme. And again, thumbs up. That's all I want. Just dopamine to my brain, please.
Yeah, I think the apart from Ezra Miller, the worst thing that happened to the pre-production, production, and post-production of this movie was how much people were talking it up before it came out. Like it was, this has saved the genre of superhero movie. Like, I don't know where James Gunn was going with this is my favorite superhero movie I've seen in years. Like, obviously he's now Mr. DC, so he kind of has to like hype it up a bit, but I think he went far too far. And a lot of people who were seeing it in previews were raving about it, and the bar was set so high where it's just a dumb hoot.
It's really silly.
I mean, isn't that just the issue where you have like DC fanboys and kind of levels of copium where anything DC related has to be the best thing?
But it was actual journalists were saying this. Like, actual reviewers were saying this. Yeah, it wasn't.
Now all the review scores are out. It's like 60-something% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I completely ignore what do they call themselves, like the enthusiast press, like the
very first reviews is like, this is game changing. Ezra Miller's performance should be nominated for an Oscar. It's unlike the genre you've ever seen before.
They say that no matter what, so they can keep getting their passes to preview screenings. So, but like there was actual real people who started saying like, this is a massive quantum leap forward for DC, etc., etc., etc.
To be fair, it's a fun movie, so maybe that is a massive leap forward for DC.
Look, and this is it. I was just like, hey, multiple action scenes happening in broad daylight with color and color that wasn't added in post production.
And most, if not all of them, suck.
Zod wins.
Yeah.
Twice, actually. Yeah, they reverse time and he fucking wins again. He just kills Batman twice.
Which is great because like it also got me because it's like, look, they're going back and they're correcting the thing that like the main thing people got the discourse about Clark killing Zod at the end of Man of Steel, in spite of like Superman's long history of killing people under certain circumstances in the comics being completely ignored. But that's besides the point. That they just went back and almost like I felt the filmmakers going, see, he's not dead. Superman didn't kill him. Shut the fuck up.
And they could have done so much more with Kara as well, man. They could have done so much.
They probably would have given her another movie had they not blown this entire thing up.
It just
she was good. She was good, and she was good. Yeah, and like she looks the part as Supergirl as well. For sure. Like, yeah.
I honestly, this whole thing is supported by a massive crutch of nostalgia. Like, it would wobble and topple and smash into a million pieces were it not for all of the things that you've mentioned, which are all references to previous films that are all better than this film.
Yeah, the movie would have been bad if it didn't have the good stuff in it. I agree.
That's kind of where the superhero genre is.
Yeah,
now.
That's what the whole point of the multiverse shit is. Like, all these movies are that. Like, Avengers Endgame is kind of that. Like, it's like, here's all the nostalgia we built up over the last 10 years in one story, and it's like a better climax of that. But it's the same thing.
Difference being that led to, like, you had an entire map of stories that were leading to a moment, whereas this is just like,
technically this film has been building since like 1989. Jack. It's a longer map.
It's literally bringing out like old wrestlers for a pop, just so they get the theme tune and they walk down the ramp.
And again, that's like what the last Spider-Man was about.
That's what Doctor Strange was about.
Multiverse of Madness was about. The Spider-Verse movies
than this.
Like the entire thing, like the next Deadpool is like we're bringing back Hugh Jackman. Like that's what all of these movies are. It's kind of mean to be like this movie we're gonna bash it for. Well, this is the most fun of all of them. It's so stupid.
Especially,
it's nowhere near. It's the worst of them all by miles. Honestly.
I don't know. I have apart from like some interesting directing choices. Like I went back and watched Multiverse of Madness after it dropped on Disney Plus. I was like, Jesus! Like I was riding high on a succession of cameos for the star rating I gave that thing. That is not a good movie at all.
I really like it.
Oh, don't rewatch it.
Babies falling out of a hospital.
Yeah.
Best scene in the movie.
So good.
Best scene, and you will not hear a single bad word from me about the baby scene. It is class. If the whole movie had that sort of energy about it, I probably would have enjoyed it a hell of a lot more.
Shout out to Ben Affleck, by the way, who is not in this movie. He is like 7 sets away from anybody doing anything else in this movie.
Yeah. And continuing his real life vibe the last couple of years. Anytime that man is captured in any type of photography, he just looks extremely tired.
And
him in the Nike Air movie, just constantly like laying down on a couch with his shoes off.
And in a very money plane type situation, I would bet all the money in my pockets that they just went to Jeremy Irons' house to film his 2 scenes. And just like set up a bunch of computers around him and probably earned more money than we'll see in our lifetimes for it.
And like Gal Gadot was brought into like a set for a day and shot like 7 different cameos for all of these movies so they could just go do the do and she shows up, she says a line and leaves.
Yeah.
That music does bang though, doesn't it?
That's the one of like the original, like the scores from the Snyderverse that they fucking nailed it.
And they know they nailed it too because it's in all, every time she's on screen it's like it's just like the Michael Keaton thing. It's just like hit the song.
Do the bit.
Exactly, it's turned into a fucking Royal Rumble situation.
And Royal Rumbles are great. It's the only good thing WWE has left.
I'm conscious of time, gentlemen, so let's move on. I would be excited to I don't know if I'd encourage Mark to go see it or not. I can't actually predict what Mark would think of it.
We didn't even talk about the bad CGI in the end.
Didn't.
The CGI in this movie blows.
There
you go.
Yeah,
I just don't think I mean, I have no frame of reference for The Flash. I think there's maybe like 2 of these like DC extended universe films that I've actually liked. And I fucking hated Man of Steel. So the fact that they're referencing that means I probably won't like this.
We also just ruined literally every good thing in the movie for him.
There you go.
I'm a relatively high guy on Man of Steel, but we don't have that kind of time.
It's an entrances and finishes thing, Mark.
Yeah.
It's not a 5-star match.
And that's why the Attitude Era was more popular, Jack.